scene. Twisdon360, no filters, just truth. Time to awaken, challenge their proof. Time to awaken, challenge their proof.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Twisdon360 Politics Unplugged. Cut up the wires, shatter the screen, unplug the lies, rebuild what's on sin. Twisdon360, no filters, just truth. Time to awaken and challenge their proof. So in this episode, we are going to talk about two searing issues, and these searing issues are selective outrage. It's kind of in the same way. The selective outrage internationally and locally, the hypocrisy, the sheer hypocrisy in the Russia's reaction to Ukraine attacks on its nuclear side. And we're going to expose the hypocrisy in Nigeria on Benue killings and Zamfara killings, and why Benue killings dominate the headlines while people are dying from banditry, kidnapping, and displacement in Zamfara, Sokoto, Katsina remain invisible. Who decides whose death matter, and why is the narrative racialized and religiously inflamed without evidence? This episode challenges power narrative and silence from Tehran to Zamfara, from Washington to Makodi. Twisdon360 Politics Unplugged. Names what others peer to say. Welcome to Twisdon360 Politics Unplugged. When Russia retaliates against Ukrainian attacks on its nuclear infrastructure, the West erupts. Dangerous escalation, violation of international law, global threat. But when Israel strikes deep inside Iranian territory, assassinating senior Iranian military officials, bombing military and nuclear facilities, there is no similar outrage, no global summits, nor emergency UN sessions, just strategic silence. Maybe sometime there are, but not always. And this is to show you the hypocrisy, the classical hypocrisy of the global power, the empires. Why? Because this is not about law. It is about power. It is about the monopoly over who gets to define the law, justice, and violence. It is about the weaponization of international law and the racial imperial hierarchy that underpins it. Today's segment is not just commentary. It is an indictment of system that continues to privilege empire whiteness and subservience while punishing independence, resistance, and non-alignment. International law as a weapon of empire. This is exactly how the empires are using international laws. International laws were supposed to be a shield for the weak, not a sword for the strong, but the way it is enforced today tells a different story. When NATO bombs Yugoslavia, it is humanitarian intervention. When the US invades Iraq under a lie, it's regime change. When Israel assassinates Iranian scientists or bombs Syria, it is self-defense. But when Russia intervenes in Ukraine, when Iranian responds to Israeli aggression, when Venezuela jails coup plotters backed by Washington, suddenly it's a crisis. Suddenly we hear about international law, democracy, human rights. And that's bring me to my favorite, the most cited public intellectual, the most living public intellectual. This is Professor Noam Chomsky. captured it perfectly. There are worthy victims and unworthy victims. The victims of enemy state are worthy. Our own victims are unworthy. And this is exactly how the empires are doing it. Iran's sovereignty was clearly violated. The world knows this. The Vienna Convention knows this. Even the West knows this, but no says it loud, because silence in this context is complicity. The moment Iran retaliates with direct strikes on military targets inside Israel, the headlines shift suddenly. Tel Aviv is the victim, the aggressor become the aggrieved. The headlines read, Iranian attack prompts global concern. This is not journalism. This is narrative warfare. If a total manufacturing consent, let me put it this way. When the Israel attack Iranian scientists and military nuclear facilities, it is nothing in the global headline, in Le Monde, in Le Figaro, in Washington Post, on Daily Telegraph, and BBC, CNN, Fox, whatever. It is nothing. But when the Iran retaliate, then it suddenly becomes something of a condemnation and of a global concern. And that is why I say this is not journalism. This is a narrative warfare. White geopolitical exemptionalism and imperial hierarchy. Let's call it what it is. A white geopolitical exceptionalism. The West sees itself as the moral center of the world. When European or American cities are attacked, it is tragedy. When Khartoum or Tehran or Gaza burns, it is geopolitics. Israel can act unilaterally across borders, yet never be accused of escalation. Iran is treated as a rogue state for daring to respond. There is no reason for this hierarchy. It is racial. When NATO sends weapons, it is aid. When Iran sends missiles, it is terrorism. When US funds military dictators in Egypt, Saudi Arabia's monarchy, and elsewhere, it is strategy. When Russia or China backs leaders in the global south, it is labeled neocolonialism. I mean, what is that and what is this? This is double standard and classical Western hypocrisy that we have been talking about for the couple of days. And there are two sets of rules, one for the empire and its allies, and one for those who say no. This double standard is baked into the institutions, the IMF, the UN, the media, the courts, even humanitarian aid has been turned into a political weapon. The narrative is simple. The West brings order, everyone else brings chaos, which is untrue. It's an absolute invention and untrue. They bring nothing but chaos, they themselves. But what is now more chaotic than permanent war, what is more destabilizing than empire, is the so-called maverick stance and the criminalization of independence. Iran, Cuba, Venezuela, Russia, North Korea. What ties these nations together is not ideology, it is refusal. I mean, they have nothing in common. The Iranian regime is brutal, Islamic theocratic regime, while China and North Korea are simply communist and atheist regimes. While even the Russia, you can put it like this, even though in the recent years it has changed the narrative, it becomes a kind of a Orthodox Christian, a defender and a supporter of Christian orthodoxy. This is the Russia. But why they are together? They are together because their refusal brings them together. It is a refusal that brings them together. Refusal to be absorbed into Western orbit. Refusal to be private to privatize their economies for Wall Street, refusal to surrender national sovereignty for IMF loans or NATO partnerships. And for that, they are criminalized. Cuba is sanctioned to starvation. Venezuela is strangled economically. North Korea is completely isolated. That I have never seen an isolated nation than North Korea. Iran is encircled. Russia is demonized, completely demonized. And none of these excuses human rights abuses within those countries. But the point is this. Their real crime is, in the eyes of the empires, is sovereignty. It's not about human rights abuses. Yes, I agree there is human rights abuses in all this country. The regimes are brutal regimes. But we cannot just ignore the fact that it is because they are not saying yes to empires. And you cannot deny this. None of these excuses, human rights abuses within those countries. But the point is this. Their real crime in the eyes of the empire is sovereignty. Iran was Western puppets. Its nuclear program would be no issue if Russia obeyed Washington. Its sphere of influence would be tolerated. But as long as you refuse to be part of their side, then you are demonized and you're never going to be tolerated. But they don't so they are enemies because they refused. Refusal made them enemies. Global South sees through the lies. People in Africa, Asia, Latin America know this script. We live it. We saw what happened to Libya after it surrendered its weapons. We saw what happened to Iraq. We saw how democracy promotion turned into drone strikes. And now we are watching how the Israeli assault on Iranian territory is being normalized while Iranian retaliation is criminalized. And this is how the global South is threatened. We will deal with you. You are threatening the global peace and stability. This is the treatment we are getting from the West. In the street of Lagos, Johannesburg, Nairobi, Caracas, Jakarta, Pyongyang, Tehran, Beirut, everywhere. People are not confused. We see what is happening and we are not buying it. We are no longer buying these narratives of the West. We are told to trust international law, but when that law is applied only to weak, it is not no law at all. We are told to support global norms, but when those norms protect the powerful and punish the independent, there are not norms, there are imperial tools. We are told to listen to the international community, but what is the international community? Mostly the US, Europe, and whoever echoes them. This is how Noam Chomsky put it. This is why Twisdon360 Politics Unplugged exists. To name the empire, to call out hypocrisy, to say what global media won't say. We are here to tell you what they would never tell you. Because peace without sovereignty is occupation. Because law without justice is control. Because silence in the face of racialized imperial violence is betrayal. And we refuse to be silent. So now we are going to go to our second issue, and it is in Nigeria. We are going to turn to Nigeria, whose blood makes the headlines, the politics of death in Nigeria. When massacre happened in Benue, it is on the news. When another one happens in Zamfara, Sokoto, Katsina, it's a footnote. Why? Is it because killings in Benue are more tragic, or it's because they fit a media-friendly narrative? One of persecuted Christian farmers versus unnamed Fulani headsman, or Islam is malicious. Here is the truth. Nigeria is bleeding across all corners, but not all blood is treated equally. For years, communities in Northwest, especially Zamfara, Sokoto, and Katsina, have endured relentless attacks, kidnappings, and banditry. Whole villages wiped out, children abducted, farmers displaced, yet somehow this don't get the same airtime. When Benue burns, we hear of ethnic cleansing, of Christian genocide, often pushed by politicians and NGOs with a clear agenda. International organizations amplify these claims, often without clear evidence, while ignoring the decades-long Boko Haram insurgency and recent jihadi expansion in the northeast and even the north central. It is in the north central, in Kwara, and it is also in the northwest. But we are not been listening to them talking about it. So this idea of amplifying the one killing and refusing to talk about the other is a hypocrisy and selective outrage, and it must be called out, and that is why we are calling it out. And let's be honest, there is suffering in Benue. We cannot deny this, but it's not unique. It is not one-sided. It is not more tragic than the thousands killed or displaced in the Northwest or Northeast. So why double standard? Western media, NGOs, and even some Nigerian elites have painted a picture of Muslim on Christian genocide in Nigeria, but this simplistic frame erases the complex realities of land conflict, poverty, failed governance, and the collapse of local security system. In the Northwest, Fulani and Hausa communities suffers equally in many cases. It is Muslims killing Muslims. In others, it is state-backed neglect enabling non-state actors to reign with impunity in many ungovernable spaces. Nigeria has many ungovernable spaces. I doubt if the governable spaces is bigger than ungovernable spaces. Yet these pacts don't trend. They don't want to align with the global NGO industrial complexes narrative of tribal horror and religious victimhood. Every massacre in Nigeria is a tragedy, but selective outrage, amplification of some over others, is political. And why is Benue pen politicized for national mobilization, but Sokoto's pen ignored? Why a Christian deeds frame as genocide, but Muslim deeds are treated as a routine banditry? This disparity serves those who wish to divide Nigeria along ethnic, religious lines. And it's also aligned with Western media's obsession with Christian persecutions while ignoring systemic violence against Muslims in the same region. I'm not saying Christians are targeting Muslims, but these are criminals that are targeting everybody. And even in Benue, the killings are not selecting between the Christian and Muslim. Many northern voices are raising these questions. Activists, journalists, community leaders demanding that Zamfara lives must matter too, and that Sokoto's displaced must be seen, and that Kaduna's and Katsina's victims must not be erased. And yet, their pleas are rarely amplified because their stories don't serve the dominant narrative of backward Muslim violence against innocent Christian minorities. But facts matters, and justice must be equal. In conclusion, Nigeria's crisis deserves nuance, not propaganda. And Twisdon360 Politics Unplugged is here to say not to selective outrage, not to ethnic scapegoating, not to religious manipulation, and yes, to justice for all Nigerians, regardless of faith or region, because silence is not neutrality and propaganda is not truth. From Tehran to Zamfara to Benue, from Gaza to Makodi, we exploit the games of empire and the lies of local elites. politics. This is just the beginning of the show. This is just the beginning of Twisdon360, where no filter, no spin, just truth. And we'll be telling you the truth. Keep listening and keep following us. Thank you very much. See you another time.